The Fortress Unvanquishable, Save for Sacnoth, by Lord Dunsany. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Greg Marguerite. The Fortress Unvanquishable, Save for Sacnoth, by Lord Dunsany. In a wood older than record, a foster brother of the hills, stood the village of Allathurion, and there was peace between the people of that village and all the folk who walked in the dark ways of the wood, whether they were human, or of the tribes of the beasts, or of the race of the fairies and the elves and the little sacred spirits of trees and streams. Moreover, the village people had peace among themselves and between them and their lord, Lorendiak. In front of the village was a wide and grassy space, and beyond this the great wood again. But at the back the trees came right up to the houses, which, with their great beams and wooden framework and thatched roofs green with moss, seemed almost to be a part of the forest. Now in the time I tell of there was trouble in Allathurion, for of an evening fell dreams were wont to come slipping through the tree trunks and into the peaceful village, and they assumed dominion of men's minds, and led them in watches of the night through the cindery plains of hell. Then the magician of that village made spells against those fell dreams. Yet still the dreams came flitting through the trees as soon as the dark had fallen, and led men's minds by night into terrible places, and caused them to praise Satan openly with their lips. And men grew afraid of sleep in Allathurion, and they grew worn and pale, some through the want of rest, and others from fear of the things they saw on the cindery plains of hell. Then the magician of the village went up into the tower of his house, and all night long those whom fear kept awake could see his window high up in the night glowing softly alone. The next day, when the twilight was far gone and night was gathering fast, the magician went away to the forest's edge, and uttered there the spell that he had made. And the spell was a compulsive, terrible thing, having a power over evil demons and over spirits of ill, for it was a verse of 40 lines in many languages, both living and dead, and had in it the word wherewith the people of the plains are wont to curse their camels, and the shout wherewith the whalers of the north lure the whales shoreward to be killed, and a word that causes elephants to trumpet, and every one of the 40 lines closed with a rhyme for wasp. And still the dreams came flitting through the forest, and led men's souls into the plains of hell. Then the magician knew that the dreams were from Gaznak. Therefore he gathered the people of the village, and told them that he had uttered his mightiest spell, a spell having power over all that were human or of the tribes of the beasts, and that since it had not availed, the dreams must come from Gaznak, the greatest magician among the spaces of the stars. And he read to the people out of the Book of Magicians, which tells the comings of the comet, and foretells his coming again. And he told them how Gaznak rides upon the comet, and how he visits Earth once in every 230 years, and makes for himself a vast invincible fortress, and sends out dreams to feed on the minds of men, and may never be vanquished but by the sword Sacnoth. And a cold fear fell on the hearts of the villagers when they found that their magician had failed them. Then spake Leothric, son of the Lord Lorendiak, and 20 years old was he. Good master, what is the sword of Sacnoth? And the village magician answered, Fair lord, no such sword as yet is wrought, for it lies as yet in the hide of Tharagavverug, protecting his spine. Then said Leothric, Who is Tharagavverug, and where may he be encountered? And the magician of Allathurion answered, He is the dragon crocodile who haunts the northern marshes and ravages the homesteads by their marge. And the hide of his back is of steel, and his underparts are of iron. But along the midst of his back, over his spine, there lies a narrow strip of unearthly steel. This strip of steel is Sacnoth, and it may be neither cleft nor molten, and there is nothing in the world that may avail to break it, nor even leave a scratch upon its surface. It is of the length of a good sword, and of the breadth thereof. Shouldst thou prevail against Tharagavverug, his hide may be melted away from Sacnoth in a furnace, but there is only one thing that may sharpen Sacnoth's edge, and this is one of Tharagavverug's own steel eyes, and the other eye thou must fasten to Sacnoth's hilt, and it will watch for thee. But it is a hard task to vanquish Tharagavverug, for no sword can pierce his hide, his back cannot be broken, and he can neither burn nor drown. In one way only can Tharagavverug die, and that is by starving." Then sorrow fell upon Leothric, but the magician spoke on. "If a man drive Tharagavverug away from his food with a stick for 3 days, he will starve on the 3rd day at sunset. And though he is not vulnerable, yet in one spot he may take hurt, for his nose is only of lead. A sword would merely lay bare the uncleavable bronze beneath, but if his nose be smitten constantly with a stick he will always recoil from the pain, and thus may Tharagavverug to left and right be driven away from his food." Then Leothric said, "What is Tharagavverug's food?" And the magician of Allathurion said, "His food is men." But Leothric went straight away thence, and cut a great staff from a hazel tree, and slept early that evening. But the next morning, awakening from troubled dreams, he arose before the dawn, and taking with him provisions for 5 days, set out through the forest northwards towards the marshes. For some hours he moved through the gloom of the forest, and when he emerged from it the sun was above the horizon, shining on pools of water in the wasteland. Presently he saw the claw marks of Tharagavverug deep in the soil, and the track of his tail between them like a furrow in a field. Then Leothric followed the tracks till he heard the bronze heart of Tharagavverug before him booming like a bell. And Tharagavverug, it being the hour when he took the first meal of the day, was moving towards a village with his heart tolling. And all the people of the village were come out to meet him, as it was their wont to do, for they abode not the suspense of awaiting Tharagavverug, and of hearing him sniffing brazenly as he went from door to door, pondering slowly in his metal mind what habitat he should choose. And none dared to flee, for in the days when the villagers fled from Tharagavverug, he, having chosen his victim, would track him tirelessly, like a doom. Nothing availed them against Tharagavverug. Once they had climbed the trees when he came, but Tharagavverug went up to one, arching his back and leaning over slightly, and rasped against the trunk until it fell. And when Leothric came near, Tharagavverug saw him out of one of his small steel eyes, and came towards him leisurely, and the echoes of his heart swirled up through his open mouth. And Leothric stepped sideways from his onset, and came between him and the village, and smote him on the nose, and the blow of the stick made a dint in the soft lead. And Tharagavverug swung clumsily away, uttering one fearful cry, like the sound of a great church bell that had become possessed of a soul that fluttered upward from the tombs at night, an evil soul, giving the bell a voice. Then he attacked Leothric, snarling, and again Leothric leapt aside and smote him on the nose with the stick. Tharagavverug uttered like a bell, howling, and whenever the dragon crocodile attacked him or turned towards the village, Leothric smote him again. So all day long Leothric drove the monster with a stick, and he drove him farther and farther from his prey, with his heart tolling angrily and his voice crying out in pain. Towards evening Tharagavverug ceased to snap at Leothric, but ran before him to avoid the stick, for his nose was sore and shining, and in the gloaming the villagers came out and danced to cymbal and psaltery. When Tharagavverug heard the cymbal and psaltery, hunger and anger came upon him, and he felt as some lord might feel who was held by force from the banquet in his own castle, and heard the creaking spit go round and round, and the good meat crackling on it. And all that night he attacked Leothric fiercely, and ofttimes nearly caught him in the darkness, for his gleaming eyes of steel could see as well by night as by day. And Leothric gave ground slowly till the dawn, and when the light came they were